Hey everybody, I just want to give my thoughts on BRICS, and the reason why is because it's been a while since I've actually looked into BRICS, or just the concept of the world outside of America and Europe developing. And for me, I've always looked into other countries for investment ideas like China or India or Africa. And the reason why I'm looking at this now is because there's finally talks about BRICS all over the news. But, BRICS has been a thing that's been around for a long, long time. So I don't really know why they're hyping it now unless there's some kind of political or economic agenda. But, yeah, let's just see what's going on. I kind of have a general idea of how BRICS works. I believe it's a bunch of different countries. Okay, so it's right here. World economies grouping up. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then I think there's like it's 2000. It was formed in 2010. This is not really recent news. This is actually a very old concept, a very old idea, and it's been going on for a very long time. It's just that now we have something to define it, and if you just follow the economic data, geopolitics, you kind of have a general idea that okay, based on this, on these trends and actions, that this is probably going to happen over time. So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to give my few thoughts of it after just looking up bricks. Because for me, I'm thinking of getting more involved in research and then coming up with my own theories again, which helped me towards my investments at one point. Like, an example would be with China. It's like, okay, I know the stocks are probably never going to be delisted. Not a financial advisor, just my personal point of view and opinion, but it's like it's like just playing game theory or just speculating. Yeah, so it's like okay, a lot of the let's see, um, oops, not this. When we look at things like Chinese stocks or Chinese investments, it's all about like understanding your risk versus reward. I would say, right? And then like making a calculated bet. And this is just my opinion, so don't take it serious. Just an opinion. But let's see. Let's just use Alibaba. And because of that, it's sort of just like understanding like the risk. And one of like the biggest reasons why people were fearsome of investing in Chinese companies was because it's a shell company and that it could be delisted and that it's from an authoritarian government. Um, and I think those are very valid reasons to be concerned, but let's just use Alibaba as an example. Um, so for me, it's, luckily I did sell around this point. I think I sold around here. Or was it the 300s? Yeah, I got really lucky with this company. But it's sort of like you have to just understand what's going on and then make a calculated bet. And what I mean is, um, one of the biggest fears is delisting risk. But what are the odds of that? If you were to delist Chinese companies, like what are the repercussions? You lose access to the Chinese financial markets, and then therefore, you're basically cutting off half of your body. We rely on China for everything: manufacturing, products, services, cheap goods, expensive goods, high quality goods, ideas, technologies, patents, and trade. We rely on China so much that if we were to delist Chinese companies or even the shell companies, odds are the repercussions would be so devastating that the entire financial system would be destroyed. So it's like you can't do that. So it's kind of like debunking the fears, mythbusters in a sense. So it's like, yeah, delisting Chinese companies when majority of your United States companies rely on China, whether it be for their customers or their manufacturing or resources, would destroy the US financial system. And then also, it's like it would allow for China to have the independence and space to actually start cultivating their financial markets, like the Hong Kong Stock Exchange or the Shanghai Stock Exchange, things like that. And if you're the U.S., you want to dominate the financial system. So a financial system that benefits you is utilized. Um, so it's like, yeah, why would you want to destroy that? It doesn't make sense. So I wasn't really fearing Chinese stock delisting. It just doesn't make sense. Like, it makes zero sense. You can trade it though. You can trade the news, but I wouldn't take it like too seriously, because if you were to delist Chinese companies, that's like, you're asking for World War III in a sense. And then Amazon, Tesla, Apple, they all rely on China. Like, without China, I don't know if half these companies would even be profitable anymore. Tesla, I think, for example, I think China has one of the best high quality Tesla vehicles, and has some of the most profitable Tesla vehicles coming out of China. So it's like, why would you delist Chinese companies? Because then you'd start kicking out Tesla, Amazon, Apple, and all these other, Walmart, Target, or anything, supply chains, resources. So it doesn't make sense, really. It seems like economic suicides for the United States. And if you were to do that, then these countries that have less to lose would start unifying and fortifying their own financial systems and economies. So yeah, it seems like a really bad choice. Um, and then another thing would be like, I don't know, war of China. It's like, why would we have a war of them? It doesn't make sense. Like, for Taiwan, like, you would have to give. What about Hawaii? What about America? Like, are we gonna give back America to the Native Americans? Are we gonna give back Hawaii to the Native Hawaiians? Are we gonna give autonomy to these people? Probably not. So it's like, probably don't. They don't really. America doesn't really care about Taiwan. They just use it as a proxy or an excuse to like push their own selfish, agendas. So let's take a look at BRICS. The main purpose of BRICS was created by Goldman Sachs. BRICS was created by Goldman Sachs as an analytical grouping of emerging markets countries witnessed strong economic growth and were poised to dominate the world economy by 2050. So maybe we should just look at Wikipedia, probably get some better. But yeah, looking further into this though, when it came to like the listing fears, it's like we didn't have a drop in October or Q4 of 2020 because of Chinese delisting fears or fear of war with China. We've become more reliant on China than ever at this point. We had a delisting because the Fed started raising interest rates, and risk assets or things like that started becoming more, well, they started coming down in value, right? There's numerous reasons why, um, but being Chinese wasn't the reason why. There was no risk because of being Chinese. It was just risk assets. And then you want to, like, of course, you want to fortify and you want to invest in your own companies in your own country, right? Because it's like, if you give more money towards these companies, then they have more money to like throw towards research and develop, which eventually could rival companies like Amazon. So why would you want that, right? If you are American. For me personally, I don't really care. I think that we should have more competition amongst all companies, because that means that we have more opportunities as the buyer for better deals. And that means they're going to have to try harder for our business. Not only that, but it gives jobs globally. So I don't really see a problem with that. Does the United States have to come down in terms of like their inflated values and their inflated sense of cost of living and their inflated standards of living? Yeah, they do, and the world has to become more fair. So I don't personally see a problem with companies around the world doing well. I don't see problems with economies growing and doing well either. It's a great thing in my opinion. It means more people get to eat. So well, this is really long, so like, let's just go over, just let's just skim through this together. I need to brush up this stuff anyway. BRICS is a grouping of world economies of Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa, formed by 2010, an addition of South Africa to predecessors to the predecessors BRIC. The original acronym BRIC, or the BRICS, was coined in 2001 by Goldman Sachs. Okay. BRICS has a combined area of 32. Okay, it's not really. Okay, so. Okay, so it accounts for. BRICS accounts for 41% of the global world population. So, yeah, that's a lot of people. And, if we have like around 8 point something 7 billion people in this world, yeah, these people should have just amount like the same amount of global voting power. Like America has 350 million people, so it doesn't make sense to me why one country like the United States has the most leverage when it comes to voting, where the world heads when like there's 41.5 when there's 8.7 billion or 8 billion plus people in this world. It doesn't make sense. I think, if we were to have a more fair vote where every vote matters, then we might see that the world could shift differently in terms of how we do things. And is that bad? Well, it might be bad if you're in America. Like if you benefit off of like this system that is very exploitative towards others, but if you don't benefit from the current status quo and it changes, I think that's good. It could also mean like these countries around the world that don't have as much resources could start getting more resources. And I personally don't see a problem with that, you know. Okay, this is from 2018, so I think this is a little off, but yeah, at these two countries, India and China, just an example, have a combined total of over 700 million people. Why should this country, the United States, have way more voting power? I don't really care about the economic position. Like, if God was real, right? And I don't know if you're religious, then you may want to consider this or not. But if God's real, if these two, three countries were to vote, then wouldn't like if they wanted to increase their economic influence over here, like wouldn't that mean that it could like these people have more voting power in a sense? Unless people think all lives don't matter and that individual lives matter more than others. Yeah, I don't know, but okay, so in America, in North America, Central America, and the Caribbean, so this region in general, we have around 587 million, and in Asia there's 4.5 billion. So yeah, maybe these people should have a bigger voting power on how the world is headed. But I don't see a problem with economies like Brazil or India or China having stronger economies, because if you have this many people, you need stronger economies to accommodate your own country and people around you. And India, like, I heard that some countries in the Middle East were considering or have joined the BRICS. And I think this is also good because it means that, countries where there isn't as much resources benefit. But let's just say that and there's a lot of economic systems that work sort of or not as efficient as they could be, but perhaps like if some of these other economies had more resources, then perhaps maybe their economic systems would perform better. Like, like my friend was telling me, she was telling me that in Vietnam they have some form of communism, and she was saying that maybe like 30 years ago, the people did well under communism or whatever form of communism that they had, and that maybe if they weren't bombed and they weren't subjected to so many problems and events throughout the decades, that perhaps even if they're communist, whether we agree with it or not, their economic system and their social system would have been much stronger without all those events that had occurred. Same with like Africa. I would wonder if these countries would have as many wars, or if they would have as many like economic or political or geopolitical problems, if or social problems, if like these countries weren't exploited by Europe or Asia or other surrounding countries. But it makes me wonder. It's like countries like China, right? For millenniums, they're a very powerful country throughout the different dynasties, and eventually they were exploited by Europe, if that didn't have occurred, would China have been in a much better position economically? Like the Opium Wars. Did the Opium War set other countries back that were victims of the Opium War, like Europe? If Europe wasn't exploiting all these other countries, would they have developed much better? Till today, we don't know. We will never really know, but yeah, it makes me wonder why people would be against the development of like other economies. And it's like if the United States has partnerships with other countries, we should be promoting economic growth amongst different countries, because every country and every system is going to be slightly different, because there's just so many different things: the demographics, the economies, the resources, the natural resources, the places, the geography, the demography. All these things are so different. The age, the population. So you have to have different types of systems because of all these different factors and variables that are constantly changing. So it's good, to have these economies grow, because if we believe that, um, whether we believe in trickle down or trickle up economics, if these countries do grow economically, then the pie grows bigger. Therefore, more people have access to the pie. If the United States has a financial and economic system that exploits other countries' resources and finances and economies and peoples and politics, then how can we ever give these other countries a chance? So, it's like the United States and a lot of European countries will say, um, I mean, legally, Taiwan is part of China, but, and they acknowledge that, but they will say something like Taiwan needs independence or something. But if you look at the statistics for independence, it's not everyone's against it. I think we can look into that actually. And it's like Hawaii too. Not everybody in Hawaii is against America coming over. Perhaps generations ago, people in Hawaii, the ones who were affected by the annexation, would have wanted better economic positions moving forward into becoming part of the United States system. But, not everyone in Hawaii is against, or for the unification of America and Hawaii. Like, there's some groups who want autonomy and some individuals want autonomy, and there's some who don't, even amongst the native Hawaiians. But we don't really, there's a lot of issues going on with that as well. But not everybody's against it or for it. So let's see. China, Taiwan. I think it was this one. And let's see. Okay, so I think it was this one. Um, and you can do the same thing with Hawaii. It's like with China and Taiwan, you can do the same thing with like the United States and Hawaii, or like the United States and Native American sentiment, right? And what I would wonder is like, where were these surveys taken? Were they taken in like prominent areas, or were they taken in like, I mean, like, were they taken in like more affluent areas like colleges and big cities, or were they taken in like poorer places where, you know, when you're poor and you have less to gain, when you have more to gain and less to lose, then your voting might be very different depending on your economic position. So it's like, for example, would be maybe affluent Taiwanese people or Han Chinese in Taiwan, they benefit from the current status quo of the relationship between like China and Taiwan acting as like a middleman for like everybody, for like semiconductors, chips, and other technologies. And it's good because Taiwan can like constantly have the United States and China bid for its business, and other countries as well. But it's like not everybody in Taiwan benefits from the current status quo of how the economy is positioned and how trade is positioned as well. So, it might change. Like, if there were to be a less trade between Taiwan and the United States and more trade with Taiwan, China, and India, then perhaps, as like these economy grows, then perhaps like a different group of people would benefit from that. So let's see. Unification as soon as possible. So over the past 29 years or so, it's the sentiment is kind of stayed the same. Maintain status quo, decide on a later date. Sort of stayed the same actually. Maintain status quo, move forward with independence. Okay, so it looks like it's kind of trended up slowly, and then in 2018, in the half 2018, went up tremendously, and then it started to taper. It started to sort of stagnate. Could this go down? Yeah, of course it can. But I think around this time we've had a lot of United States influence and a lot of like sentiment shift towards China in a negative way. No response. Okay, so it looks like people are getting more opinionated. Maintain status quo, move towards unification. Dark red. So this is trending down, right, as a result. And then let's see, independence as soon as possible. Dark green, 5.1%. And maintain the status quo indefinitely. But this is going up. So it's like, I'm under the assumption that these people just don't know how to decipher. They don't really want to answer. Independence as soon as possible. It's going up slowly, but it's not that much. And this is probably the biggest metric we should be considering, like independence as soon as possible. These are people who are like firm on that. They want independence. It's not. It's gone up like 2%. Maintain status quo indefinitely. Maybe, and yeah, look, this has gone up from 9.8 points to 28.6. So they like whatever this is, because yeah, it's they benefit from like trading with everybody, right? They benefit from having some kind of laissez-faire, like some kind of like independence, but also being part of China, and also doing free trade with like the US. Like they really value that, and it's a great position to be in, the current one, I would assume, because I think I was also reading up that like no Taiwanese people are scared that China is gonna like overtake Taiwan, or there's gonna buy. I think that's like US imperial propaganda. So yeah, it makes sense that China like why would Taiwan not like this position? It makes a lot of sense. It's a great beneficial position in my opinion, where you can benefit from growths of both economies, China and the United States. Because if China grows, then you have more business with your next door neighbor, or the bigger country you're part of. And if the United States does well, then you can do trade with the United States as well. And it's like, yeah, so it just makes a lot of sense. And it wouldn't make, and I think, yeah, so I don't think most people in Taiwan are afraid of any kind of like overthrow, because one, there's nothing to overthrow if you're part of this country anyway. And two, it's, yeah, you benefit from the growth of this country. So why would you, this country just benefits from every one of these countries growing. So a lot of countries do benefit from like Brazil, Russia, India, and China growing, because you won't. It's not like every country is gonna exploit every other country like the United States does. Like, yeah, the United States warmongers, fearmonger, blows up other countries, exploits other countries for their resources. But if Africa, for example, was exploited by the United States, or was exploited by Europe or France or other countries, then isn't it good to have multiple superpowers and strong economies? Because it's like this: if the United States was a big bully and just did whatever it wants, takes whatever it wants, and tells everyone that they need to be okay with it and they are doing nothing wrong, well, then other countries like Brazil or India or China that have much more economic leverage, they can offer their own sanctions, or form of economic sanctions onto the United States. So how is that bad? I think that's a great thing because that means, like, let's just pretend that Africa was being exploited by the United States or France. Then, if for example, the United States, France, and Italy, or United States and France and parts of Europe were exploiting Africa, if these countries and economies are all weak, they can't do anything about it. But if the United States, France were exploiting Africa, and India and China and Pakistan and Brazil were strong to actually do economic sanctions, then then they can say, like, hey, you guys need, America, United States, and France, you guys need to stop exploiting and destroying Africa, or else we're gonna stop doing trade with you for essential goods and services that you need. You guys need to cut it out. And the United States be like, all right, well, I guess I have to stop exploiting Africa and African people, and I guess we can arrange a different system that can help me get off my exploitation, but then also not cause civil unrest by lack of resources that we're exploiting. Like, if, for example, they were taking, you know, $200 billion of resources that help the United States economy every year, then, India and China can be like, okay, stop doing this, and we'll help cushion that blow. And yes, your economy will have to go through some sort of recession, but we will give you, I don't know, we'll help mitigate that recession by like 60 to 40% of what it could have been. What if we had just like cut off trade, but we'll slowly help alleviate that burden of stopping exploiting this country. So yeah, it's good to have these countries rise. Brazil, China, India, Russia. And so, it's like, it's a good thing. Like, what if the United States was exploiting Mexico, um, to points where it's like not okay? Or what if the United States was bombing the Middle East? Like, then India, China, Brazil, and other countries can be like, hey, United States, you need to stop bombing the Middle East just for like resources, okay? We can help you mitigate like the need for resources through alternative resources that we can help subsidize, or maybe we can find an alternative, or things like that. Or the United States can, if they want to start wars, or if they want to like fuel wars, then other countries can step in. So I don't see a problem with that, because what if one day the United States economic system becomes so corrupt that it becomes so exploitative towards its people? It's like modern day slavery. Then other countries can be like, hey, you need to reconsider your economic system and your social system, because maybe it's a little corrupt. And then these countries can lead by examples in their own perspectives, and then give people that opportunity to join them, or change, or be influenced by different ideas. So yeah, I don't personally see how this is a bad thing. It's a great thing to have more people. Like, you don't want an absolute power. You want multiple different powers to like act as checks and balances for each other. And I guess that's my summary. You want checks and balances so one doesn't go crazy and exploit the other, right? It's like, um you don't want one ruler. You want many rulers. You don't want one god. You want many gods. You don't want just one person. You want many people to act as checks and balances, because to me, this is just kind of like having one big bully on the block, and now there's like multiple strong people who can like act as checks and balances to make sure that people or individuals without much power can at least be heard or be stood up for. Because yeah, if we were exploiting Africa, if the United States was exploiting Africa, what are they supposed to do if like China and India can't stand up for themselves? Like, they can't do anything. Everyone can just watch as like this country beats up on this country for its resources and exploitation, and it's like we all just have to watch. But now these other countries can step in to protect this, or vice versa, right? Like, what if Africa started like bullying the United States? Like, we can, all these other countries can step in and make sure that things are okay. So yeah, not every you don't need one world police. You can have many world polices, because everybody, I think we have to trust in others. We can't just like believe in one is superior to all. Like, I don't think that's okay. All right. G7 bloc. So I don't know if we need to like say they're a rival. You can have many powers and act as checks and balances. You don't have to have rivals. Um, but I can't. I don't think I want to go over this today. It's just a lot of stuff, and I don't really want to go over this, but we can look over this real quick. New members. A total of 6 countries that will join BRICS: Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, United States, Iraq. Oh, United Arabia Emirates. Emirates. Okay, so I think that's somewhere around here. Yeah. Um, Algeria, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Belarus, Cuba. Oh, okay. A total of 16 countries have formally applied to join BRICS as listed below: Vietnam, Venezuela, Thailand. So these countries aren't going to be joining the BRICS if they didn't find like some kind of advantage or some kind of like opportunity for their betterment of their own people, right? Just like the Belt and Road Initiative. Like the Belt and Road Initiative is like gonna give all these countries easier access to trade amongst each other, which helps their economies and people and and all these things. Like just help cycle resources that can better be applied efficiently and effectively. Honduras. So like yeah, we have a lot of South American countries too. And I know that a lot of these countries have been exploited by the United States one way or another, or still have been. So yeah, you have Cuba as well. Yeah, so I don't think this is a bad thing. This is a good thing. I think BRICS is a really good thing. And when the United States can like throw sanctions at countries without really having individuals and its voters to like you and I to really evaluate the system and what the United States is doing. Like it's really important that you have numerous checks and balances. So without actually looking too much into this, I'd say this is a good thing to have more checks and balances, and I don't ever think that's a wrong thing to have. So yeah, okay. So yeah, this is a good thing in my opinion. Let's just see what's the latest news because I don't want to go into Wikipedia. Not, I think it's a great resource, but I just don't want to go through all that right now. So I'm just gonna read off the basic news. From the beginning of next year, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Argentina, the UAE, and Ethiopia will join the current 5 members. That's good. I don't see a problem with that. I don't look at these countries as bad things. I look at them as individuals with their own autonomy and that they have their own people to take care of that are just as important as my life and your life. Like these countries should, and can better their people's lives. And who's to say, like, let's just pretend that one of these countries have some kind of social system that isn't really that great, that perhaps some of them don't really agree with. Well, if you have these countries' unification, perhaps it leads for more mobility. It leads towards a mobility of ideas, thoughts, feet, where you want to go, what you want to try, what you want to do. So, more interconnectedness, more globalization, and less power focused here and dispersed equally. I think that's a great thing. It's like if the United States was hogging everything. Okay, if there's like a pie, okay, if there's like one pie, and the United States takes like 70-80% of that pie, and now that pie is slowly being shared. So maybe the United States has 40% of that pie, and maybe Brazil had like 5, and now they have 10, and China has like 15, and now they have 20, and India has like 2, and now they have 7, and Africa has like 3, and it becomes 10, and it goes on. It's like if these people were fat pigs eating a lot and they weren't really sharing, it's a great thing to have like everybody have more of that piece of that pie because it means more people eat. And my main goal, I think, should be like everyone deserves to eat and everybody deserves to like have a roof over their head, right? We should all reach like Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, shelter, basic necessities, and then like the opportunity to like better oneself spiritually and all these other things. So, yeah, I think that if these other economies grow and that the resources here aren't so concentrated and shared, then perhaps we could see the overall happiness of this world go up. So, overall, I'm happy about this, and I think it's a great thing. So, yeah. With that being said, I hope you all have a